The sky over the human colony world of Epsilon 9 turned red before dawn. The ground shook like a heartbeat as thunder rolled through the clouds. No one knew yet that this was not weather, it was war. Jake Rennor, a young engineer working near the colony's power station, was fixing a broken drone when he saw the first flash in the sky. A burning line of fire cut through the clouds and exploded over the city. The alarm screamed across every district, warning of an invasion. Jake dropped his tools and ran to the command post, but the soldiers were already preparing for battle. The communication lines were full of static, and no one could understand where the attack was coming from. The word spread quickly. It wasn't pirates or rebels. It was aliens. Humanity had always believed they were alone in this part of space. The first alien message came not through words but through destruction. Metallic ships with strange glowing runes descended like monsters from the clouds. Their weapons fired beams of blue light that turned entire buildings to dust. Jake could only watch as his home city burned. The air smelled of ozone and smoke. He saw soldiers fighting with everything they had, but the enemy moved too fast, too precise. Their armor reflected the fire like silver mirrors. When Jake tried to help a wounded soldier, a blast hit nearby, throwing him to the ground. His ears rang and everything went black for a moment. When he opened his eyes, the sky was filled with alien dropships. Hours passed before he realized he had been taken. He woke up inside a strange chamber, his hands bound by glowing cuffs. The walls were alive with light, pulsing like veins. Through the transparent window, he saw stars moving. He was no longer on Epsilon 9. Voices echoed in a language he didn't understand. Then one voice stood out, soft but commanding. When he turned, he saw her. She wasn't like the soldiers who attacked the colony. Her armor was elegant, shining silver with streaks of blue light running through it. Her hair flowed like white silk, and a small crown rested on her head. Her eyes were bright and calm, almost human but glowing faintly. She studied him silently, then spoke in broken English. "You are human leader?" Jake shook his head. "No, just an engineer." She looked confused, then smiled faintly. "Strange. You fought bravely." Jake didn't know what she meant. He hadn't fought anyone. He was just trying to help people escape. But something in her tone made him stop arguing. She wasn't mocking him. She sounded curious, almost impressed. She turned to one of her guards and spoke quickly in her own language. The guard hesitated, but she waved him away. Soon she was alone with Jake. "I am Princess Arya," she said. "Heir of the Zillier Dominion." Jake blinked. "You mean you started the attack?" Her eyes softened. "Not me. My mother, the Queen. She believes humans are dangerous. But She paused, as if the next words were hard to say. "I see something different." The door opened again, and one of her guards whispered something urgent. Arya's face changed. She nodded and turned back to Jake. "You are safe for now. Do not speak when the Queen arrives." Before he could ask what was happening, the room filled with a heavy presence. The temperature dropped. A tall figure entered, covered in black armor, her crown like burning light. The alien Queen. Her voice echoed like thunder. "So this is the human who destroyed my scout fleet?" Jake froze. "I didn't—" "Silence!" she roared, and the air trembled. Arya stepped forward. "Mother, please. He is no soldier. He was captured by mistake." The Queen's gaze turned toward her daughter. "You defend him? This creature?" Arya didn't flinch. "He is different." The Queen laughed coldly. "You sound like a child." Jake could feel the tension. He realized that his fate depended on this strange alien princess who barely knew him. Why was she protecting him? The Queen moved closer, studying Jake as if he were some strange animal. "Perhaps," she said, "we should see what this human is capable of. If he lives, he may serve us." Jake didn't understand, but the look in her eyes made his stomach turn. Before he could speak again, soldiers entered and dragged him away. The last thing he saw was Arya's face, calm but filled with silent defiance. That night, as he was locked in a metal cell aboard the alien warship, Jake realized this was no ordinary invasion. Something deeper was happening, something that even the aliens themselves didn't fully understand. And somewhere in the cold silence of space, a princess had made a choice that could change everything. Jake woke up to the sound of humming machines. The cell around him glowed faintly blue, smooth walls curving without seams. Everything inside felt alive, as if the ship itself was breathing. His wrists were still bound by faintly glowing cuffs. When he pulled, they tightened gently like the ship was reminding him not to try. He sat back on the narrow bench and looked at the strange lights running across the ceiling. Each pulse had a rhythm, slow, steady, almost like a heartbeat. He didn't know how long he had been asleep, but he felt the ship's movement through space. Sometimes he could hear faint echoes of voices in the corridor, alien tones that rose and fell like music. Then, the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Princess Arya stepped inside, this time without guards. She still wore her silver armor, but her helmet was gone, and her hair shimmered like light itself. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked tired, as if she had been fighting more than just battles. Jake stood slowly. I guess I should say, "Good morning?" Or whatever time it is. Arya tilted her head slightly as if trying to understand his humor. "You are not afraid?" Jake gave a small smile. "I was. Now I'm just confused." Her lips curved faintly and almost a smile. Confusion is better than fear. She walked closer, studying him as if trying to understand what made him different from other humans. "You do not act like a soldier." "I'm not one," Jake replied. "I fix things, machines, systems, drones. I'm not a fighter." She nodded slowly as if confirming her earlier belief. "And yet you helped others during the attack." "You stayed," Jake shrugged. Running never felt right. Something in his answer made her expression soften. For a few seconds the room felt strangely peaceful, but then she turned away, her tone serious. "The Queen believes you destroyed her fleet. She will not forgive easily," Jake frowned. "I didn't even know your fleet existed before today." "Why would she think that?" Arya hesitated. "Because the human colony sent out defense drones before surrender. Some of our ships fell. She believes humans used forbidden technology." "Forbidden technology?" Jake repeated. "Energy from the core stars," she said. "Weapons that bend space. No one should have them." Jake shook his head. "We don't have anything like that. We barely keep our power stations running." Arya looked uncertain. Then someone lied to her. Before Jake could ask more, the door opened again. A tall alien soldier entered and handed Arya a small metallic sphere. It projected an image, a hologram showing the Queen in her throne room. "Arya," the Queen's voice echoed, cold and powerful. "Bring the human to me. Now." Arya's expression froze. She nodded slowly, then turned to Jake. "You must come." Jake hesitated. "If she thinks I destroyed her fleet, she's not calling me for a chat." Arya's eyes met his. "Do not speak unless she allows it. Let me do the talking." The guards escorted them through long corridors filled with alien light and strange sounds. The walls shifted color as they walked, and the floor vibrated faintly like the ship was alive. They reached a massive hall where the Queen sat on her throne. Tall, majestic, her armor darker than space itself. Arya bowed slightly. "As commanded, Mother." The Queen's piercing eyes locked on Jake. "Human, you stand before the Zellier Empire. You attacked our ships. You killed my warriors. Why?" Jake felt his throat tighten. He remembered Arya's warning and stayed silent. When he didn't answer, the Queen's eyes narrowed. "He refuses to speak?" Arya stepped forward quickly. "He has no knowledge of any attack. I have questioned him." The Queen's voice turned sharp. "You trust him? After what they did to our kind on Arden Prime?" Arya didn't flinch. "He is not a soldier." "He is innocent." The Queen rose from her throne, towering above them. "Innocent means nothing when blood has been spilled." Her hand lifted and a pulse of blue energy surrounded Jake. The air crackled as invisible force pressed against his chest. He gasped, barely able to breathe. "Mother, stop!" Arya shouted. The Queen hesitated, her power fading. "You dare defy me for a human?" Arya stepped between Jake and the Queen. Her voice was calm but strong. "If he dies, you will never know the truth." The Queen's gaze turned cold as ice. "Then prove your faith, daughter. Take him to the test. If he survives, I will listen." Arya lowered her head. "Yes, Mother." The Queen turned away. "And if he fails? His death will remind you that mercy is weakness." Jake barely had time to understand what had just happened. The guards pulled him back and Arya followed in silence. Once they were out of the hall, Jake whispered, "What does she mean by test?" Arya's eyes glowed faintly. "A trial of the void. No human has ever survived it." Jake stared at her. "Then why agree to it?" She looked straight into his eyes. "Because I believe you might." For a moment, Jake saw something in her gaze. Not pity, but trust. a strange, silent promise that whatever happened next would change both their worlds. And as they walked toward the unknown chamber deep within the alien ship, Jake realized this was only the beginning. The chamber was cold and endless. Jake stood in the middle of a circular platform surrounded by glowing symbols that floated in the air. The air shimmered thin and electric. Every breath felt heavier than the last. Princess Arya stood outside the barrier, her silver armor gleaming under the strange blue light. She looked calm, but her eyes betrayed the truth. She was afraid. "This is the trial of the void," she said softly. "It tests what is real inside you: fear, strength, will. If you are weak, it will destroy you." Jake tried to stay calm, but his pulse was racing. "Sounds fun." Arya didn't smile this time. "No one jokes before the void, human." The alien guards locked the chamber's gates. The humming grew louder, like 1,000 whispers filling the room. A voice, deep, ancient, and not quite alive, echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. "The void welcomes the unproven." "Step forward, mortal of flesh," Jake swallowed hard. The ground beneath him began to fade, turning into endless space. Stars flickered around him. He looked down. There was no floor, only emptiness stretching forever. His mind screamed that it wasn't real, but his body felt the cold wind of the void against his skin. He took one hesitant step forward. The stars seemed to pulse brighter, reacting to him. Then came the first illusion. He saw the colony again. Epsilon 9 burning, people running, soldiers falling. Smoke filled the sky. The screams felt real. He heard his name echoing through the flames. "Jake, help us!" He turned, seeing faces he knew. Friends, co-workers, people he couldn't save. Guilt hit him like a wave. His hands shook. "It's not real," he whispered. "It's not real." But the images didn't fade. A small child stood before him crying. The same girl he'd seen near the power station before the attack. "Why didn't you save us, Jake?" His throat tightened. "I tried." The voice of the void spoke again. "Mortals speak of trying. The worthy do more." The flames grew brighter until everything turned white. Jake screamed, but the sound was swallowed by silence. When the light faded, he was somewhere else entirely. Now he stood on a field of glass. A storm raged overhead, lightning cutting across the sky in spirals. In front of him stood a tall figure in black armor, something humanoid but monstrous, its face hidden behind a mirrored mask. "You are the reason my people died," the figure said in a voice like his own. "You built the machines that killed them." Jake shook his head. "No, I build machines to protect people." The figure raised a glowing blade. "Protection brings war. You made this happen." Jake stepped back, fear twisting in his stomach. But then he remembered Arya's words. "It tests what is real inside you." He clenched his fists. "I won't run," the figure attacked. Jake barely dodged the strike, feeling heat brush past his face. He wasn't a soldier, but adrenaline drove him. He grabbed a fallen metal rod from the glass floor and swung. The clash sent sparks through the air. For minutes, or maybe hours, they fought in silence. Every strike was heavier than the last. Jake was bleeding, exhausted, but something inside him refused to stop. Finally, with one desperate move, he pushed forward and struck the figure's chest. The mirror shattered, revealing his own face beneath. He stared in shock. The reflection whispered, "You cannot escape what you are." Then it crumbled into dust. The storm ended. The glass beneath him cracked and the world broke apart again. Jake fell through endless space. He closed his eyes, expecting death. Instead, he landed softly on the platform again. The void was gone. The chamber's lights flickered and the barrier around him faded. Arya ran forward, her face filled with disbelief. "You survived," Jake could barely stand. "Wasn't easy." She smiled faintly, something between pride and relief. "No one has ever done that before." The guards looked uneasy, whispering among themselves. The Queen's voice came from a floating hologram in the air. "He lives?" "Impossible." Arya stood tall. "You see, Mother. He speaks truth. He is not like the others." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Bring him before me. I wish to see this human with my own eyes." The hologram disappeared. Arya looked at Jake. "You must rest, but soon you will stand before her again." Jake nodded weakly. "Yeah, can't wait." As the guards led him away, he felt Arya's gaze on him. Curious, almost protective. She had risked everything to defend him, and now he had passed a test meant for warriors beyond human strength. In the quiet corridors of the alien ship, whispers began to spread among the soldiers. Some called him the human who faced the void. Others said he was chosen by fate. Jake didn't know what any of it meant. He only knew one thing. Whatever the void had shown him wasn't just a test. It was a warning. Something far greater was coming. Something even the alien queen might not be ready for. The queen's throne room was larger than any human city hall Jake had ever seen. Silver pillars stretched toward the ceiling like frozen lightning, and 1,000 alien eyes watched from the balconies above. Every sound, every breath echoed through the hall. Jake stood at the center, weak but unbroken. The marks from the void still glowed faintly on his skin, like thin lines of light running along his arms. Princess Arya walked beside him, her steps confident yet quiet. The guards moved aside when they entered, whispering among themselves. No human had ever survived the trial before. At the far end, the alien queen sat upon her throne of crystal and light. Her presence filled the room like a storm that refused to break. When she spoke, her voice rolled through the hall like thunder. So, the human lives. Jake said nothing. He remembered Arya's warning. The queen rose slowly, her armor glowing with faint red energy. "Tell me, human, how did you survive the void? No warrior of my kind has ever returned whole." Jake swallowed hard. "I don't know. I just didn't stop trying." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Trying?" Arya stepped forward quickly. "He endured, mother." The void tested him and he proved his will. That is all that matters, but the queen's gaze stayed locked on Jake. "Will or luck?" Jake met her eyes. "Maybe both. But I think the void showed me something. Something it wanted you to see too." The hall went silent. The queen tilted her head slightly. "And what is that, human?" "That strength isn't always power," Jake said softly. "Sometimes it's refusing to become the thing you hate." For a long moment, the queen said nothing. The aliens watching from the balconies murmured among themselves, unsure whether to be angry or impressed. Finally, the queen turned away and walked back to her throne. "Strange words for a creature who builds machines of war." Jake frowned. "We build machines to survive, not to conquer." The queen looked at Arya. "You brought this human before me. You believe his kind deserves mercy?" "Yes," Arya said without hesitation. "Because if we destroy them, we destroy something in ourselves. They fight for hope, not for glory." Her voice carried strength even against her mother's presence. The queen leaned back, her expression unreadable. "Hope is the first lie of every dying race." Arya's jaw tightened. "And yet it is the one thing that never dies." The queen's eyes flared. "You speak like a human now." Arya didn't look away. "Maybe that's what frightens you." Gasps filled the hall. The guards stepped forward, but the queen raised her hand, stopping them. For several seconds there was silence. Then the queen spoke again, her tone sharp but measured. "Enough. The human will not be executed." Arya's eyes widened in surprise. "You will spare him?" The queen nodded slowly. "He will remain under your watch, daughter. You believe in his worth. Then you will be responsible for his actions." Jake exhaled quietly, unsure if this was mercy or punishment. The queen's gaze shifted to him one last time. "Do not mistake my tolerance for trust, human. One wrong step and your world will burn." The guards led Jake and Arya out of the throne room. Once the heavy doors closed behind them, Arya turned to him, relief washing across her face. "You did it," she whispered. Jake gave a small laugh. "I think you did it." For the first time, she smiled fully. "No, the void chose you. Even my mother cannot deny that." They walked through the long corridors of the ship. The alien soldiers who once looked at Jake with hatred now watched with curiosity, some even with quiet respect. Later, in her private chamber, Arya removed her crown and placed it on the table. Her voice softened. "You have changed something, Jake Rennor. Not just in the eyes of my people. In mine as well." Jake looked at her carefully. "You risked your life for me." "Why?" Arya hesitated. "Because you remind me of what my people lost. We used to believe in honor and compassion. Then power consumed us. But you—" She paused, searching for words. You fight without hate." Jake smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what makes us human." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was not empty. It was filled with understanding, but the peace didn't last. A loud alarm echoed through the ship, red lights flashing along the walls. Arya's calm expression vanished. That sound, it's a breach alarm. Jake looked around. What does that mean? Arya's eyes turned cold and sharp. It means someone has attacked the royal fleet. She activated a hologram and a fleet map appeared in the air. Dozens of red markers blinked, enemy ships fast and powerful closing in on their location. Jake's heart pounded. Who's attacking? Humans? Arya shook her head. No, worse. Outside the window the stars lit up with the light of battle. The next war had already begun, and this time Jake and Arya would be caught in the center of it. The ship trembled as explosions echoed through the halls. The once calm lights of the alien vessel flickered red. Jake grabbed a railing to steady himself as the floor tilted. Alarms screamed in the alien language, and soldiers ran past in shining armor, shouting commands. Arya's voice was sharp and calm despite the chaos. We are under attack. The outer defense line is collapsing. Jake's heart pounded. Who's attacking you? Arya brought up the hologram again. It showed strange black ships with curved wings moving like predators through space. Their weapons glowed green, cutting through shields like paper. The Dravak, she said softly, almost to herself. Ancient enemies. Raiders from beyond the rim, Jake frowned. You mean there's another alien empire out there? Yes, Arya said. And they do not take prisoners. The ship shook again, harder this time. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Jake could feel the heat of a nearby explosion. Where do we go? He asked. Arya looked around. We have to reach the engine core. If it fails, the entire ship will fall into the planet's gravity field. Without hesitation, Jake followed her. They ran through narrow corridors filled with flashing lights and smoke. The sound of battle echoed from every direction. Alien soldiers fighting off borders. Energy blasts lighting up the dark. Jake saw one alien soldier fall near him, hit by a green beam that melted through armor. Without thinking, he grabbed the soldier's weapon, a sleek rifle that felt strangely light in his hands. Do you even know how to use that? Arya asked as she ducked behind a wall. Jake gave her a nervous grin. Not a clue, but I'll figure it out. They turned a corner and came face to face with the enemy. 3 Dravak warriors charged toward them. Their armor was black and bone-like, their faces hidden behind masks that hissed steam. Arya fired first, her plasma bolts hitting the lead attacker. The creature staggered but didn't fall. Jake aimed his stolen weapon and fired. The blast hit another enemy square in the chest, sending it flying backward. Nice shot, Arya said, reloading quickly. Jake nodded, adrenaline rushing through him. Guess I'm learning fast. When the last Dravak fell, the corridor went silent again except for the hum of the alarms. Smoke filled the air. Arya looked at Jake, her breathing heavy. You're full of surprises, human. He smiled faintly. You have no idea. They continued through the burning halls until they reached the engine core. The chamber was massive, a glowing sphere of blue energy pulsing in the center like a living heart. But something was wrong. The core's energy was unstable, flickering dangerously. Arya ran to the control console, her fingers moving quickly across alien symbols. The shield generator is failing. If the core overloads, the explosion will destroy half the fleet. Jake looked over her shoulder. The alien interface was complex, but energy systems were something he understood. He pointed to the readings. You're rerouting too much charge through the feedback loop. It'll collapse in minutes. Arya looked at him surprised. You can read this? Not exactly, Jake said, already pulling open a side panel. But energy's energy. It all follows the same rules. She hesitated for only a second before nodding. Do what you must. Jake crawled under the console, sparks flying above him. He connected 2 exposed cables, then grabbed a broken coolant line and redirected it toward the reactor's stabilizer. The floor shook again. The enemy ships had started hitting the core directly. Hurry! Arya shouted. Jake gritted his teeth, twisting the last connector into place. Almost there! The reactor roared, light flooding the chamber. For a moment, Jake thought it was going to explode, but then the trembling stopped. The alarms faded. The core's pulse became steady again. Arya stared at the readings in disbelief. You did it. You saved us. Jake stood up, his face covered in sweat and dust. Told you. I fixed things. Arya smiled softly, a rare warmth in her usually calm eyes. My mother will have no choice but to see your worth now. But before Jake could answer, the communication console lit up. The Queen's image appeared, her expression cold but controlled. Arya, the Dravak are retreating. Your ship's survival bought us time. Arya bowed slightly. Yes, Mother. The Queen's eyes moved toward Jake. You, human. You have saved the royal vessel. My soldiers whisper your name now. The Void Chosen. Jake blinked. I just didn't want to die. The Queen ignored his words. Return to the flagship. I wish to speak with both of you. The transmission ended. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the core. Jake leaned against the wall, breathing hard. She's not going to thank me, is she? Arya shook her head gently. No, but she will begin to fear you, and that might be more powerful. They looked at each other for a long moment, the silence filled with meaning neither could explain. Two souls from different worlds, one human, one alien, caught between duty and something far more dangerous. Outside, the stars burned bright, and the war still raged on. But for the first time, both of them began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could change everything. The royal flagship hung in orbit above a dying red planet. Massive alien cruisers surrounded it, their engines glowing like suns. The war had stopped for now, but the silence felt heavier than battle. Jake and Princess Arya walked together down the long corridor toward the Queen's chamber. Soldiers bowed to Arya but stared at Jake with a mix of curiosity and fear. He had become a legend among them. The human who faced the void, saved the ship, and lived. But Jake didn't feel like a hero. He was tired, confused, and more than anything, unsure what would happen next. As the doors opened, the throne room shimmered with light. The alien queen stood tall, her black armor gleaming, her expression unreadable. Around her were generals and advisors, all watching silently. When Arya and Jake approached, the queen spoke. You both have returned, and my empire still stands, Arya bowed. The human saved the ship. Without him, the fleet would have fallen. The queen's gaze turned to Jake. So I have heard. You have earned a place in my hall, though you do not belong to it. Jake met her stare calmly. I didn't do it for your empire. I did it because people were dying. A murmur spread through the hall, aliens whispering to each other. The queen's eyes narrowed. You speak boldly, human. Arya stepped forward before tension grew. Mother, he speaks truth. Without him, none of us would be alive. You must see it now, humans are not our enemies. The queen's voice dropped lower, colder. You have grown too close to him, Arya. Arya didn't deny it. Maybe closeness is what our kind needs. We've spent centuries conquering, never understanding. But this human, he acts from heart, not power. Jake looked at Arya, surprised by the emotion in her voice. The queen stood silently for a moment, then turned to her council. Leave us. The hall emptied until only the three of them remained. The silence between them felt like a storm about to break. The queen stepped closer. You are strong, human. The void accepted you. My people fear you, and my daughter defends you. Tell me, what do you want? Jake hesitated. I don't want power. I want peace. Your war destroyed my home. I just want it to end. The queen's tone hardened. Peace is a lie we tell before the next battle. Arya shook her head. It doesn't have to be. We can end this cycle. The queen turned to her, her voice rising. You think I have not tried? I have seen what mercy brings. Empires fall because of weakness. Jake took a step forward. Or maybe they fall because they forget what they're fighting for. The queen's eyes flashed with anger. You dare lecture me? Energy sparked around her as the air vibrated with power. The ground trembled beneath them. But Arya stepped between them, her arms outstretched. Stop! He's not your enemy. The queen's energy flickered, then faded slightly. Her face softened only for a second. You defend him as if he were one of us. Arya looked at Jake. He is. The queen's expression turned from surprise to quiet sorrow. Then you have already chosen. Before anyone could react, the chamber shook violently. The floor cracked, alarms blared. The holograms on the walls flickered, showing the Dravak fleet returning, larger, stronger, and heading straight for them. A voice came through the intercom. Your Majesty, the enemy is attacking again. They've brought a world-breaker cannon. Arya turned to her mother. We must unite our fleets. Humans can help. There is no time, the queen shouted. They are too close. Jake looked at the battle display. The cannon's energy was building fast. If it fired, the explosion would destroy the entire fleet and the planet below. He turned to Arya. If I can get to the power core, I might overload their weapon before it charges. Arya's eyes widened. That's suicide, Jake smiled faintly. Yeah, I get that a lot. The Queen looked at him, for once not as an enemy but as something else. You would give your life for those who tried to kill you? Jake nodded. Maybe that's what makes me human. The Queen stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, Go. Arya's voice broke. Mother, she is right, the Queen said softly. If he fails, we are lost anyway. Arya grabbed Jake's hand tightly. Then I'm going with you. He looked into her glowing eyes, unsure whether to argue. But he didn't. Together they ran through the corridors as the ship trembled around them. The Dravak cannon's energy filled the sky like a second sun. They reached the power bay where the alien energy core pulsed wildly. Jake worked fast, rerouting systems, wires burning under his hands. Arya stood guard, firing at drones trying to breach the chamber. Jake, she shouted. The weapon's charging faster. I just need a few more seconds. He yelled back. The lights flickered, alarms screaming louder. Then more silence. Jake hit the final switch. The energy core flared, sending a massive surge of power through the ship's communication link, straight into the Dravak weapon. Through the window, a blinding explosion lit up the sky. The Worldbreaker cannon shattered in a wave of light, the enemy fleet consumed by fire. But the blast wave hit the Queen's ship too. Systems overloaded. The floor cracked and energy arcs cut across the room. Jake fell, pain flooding his body. He felt Arya catch him, her voice distant. Stay with me. Jake, please. He smiled weakly. Looks like I fixed one last thing. The Queen's voice came faintly through the comms.
Arya, the fleet is safe.
The human saved us all. Tears glimmered in Arya's eyes. He saved you, Mother. He saved everyone. Jake's vision dimmed. Told you, humans don't quit. Then everything went white. When the light faded, the war was over. Weeks later, across the galaxy, stories spread of a single human who faced the void, defied the Queen, and sacrificed himself to save two empires. The alien Queen declared peace with Earth. The wars ended. And every year the stars above Epsilon 9 shone a little brighter, as if remembering the man who changed everything. On her flagship, Princess Arya often stood at the window, looking toward the blue planet far away. She whispered softly, chosen by an alien princess, and remembered by an entire empire. And somewhere across the endless stars, the universe seemed to answer. Humans are never just human.